Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some very fun battles in the Open Master League featuring a perfect IV level 50 Shadow URSALUNA. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, so many thanks for the battle submission. URSALUNA is a ground and normal type Pokemon with the moveset of Tackle, Ice Punch, and Legacy High Horsepower. So Tackle, of course, not the greatest fast move, but with Ice Punch and High Horsepower, URSALUNA can hit very hard into the Master League meta. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out the perfect IV Shadow URSALUNA in action. Hopping to the first match, picking up a fairly neutral lead, Excadrill into Mewtwo. This matchup, of course, is very dependent on what the second charge move is on the Mewtwo. Are they running Shadow Ball or are they running Focus Blast? They did build up to a potential Focus Blast here. Exca lets it go, and it's only the Shadow Ball. That is very fortunate. Going for the Drill Run, and we see a catch onto Kyogre. Now this team is very weak to Kyogre with both the Exca and the URSALUNA, not appreciating it, but the opponent, by switching it in, is now going to have it aligned onto the Shadow Shiny Mewtwo. Shadow Shiny Mewtwo got to be one of the best flexes in the game. Kyogre shields up the Side Strike so they can get a shield back with the Surf. Mewtwo over farming, throwing after 4 Psycho Cuts, perfect timing, and will get the KO. We see the Battle of Mewtwo. Opponent is going to fire off the Side Strike, and now just gonna let the Mewtwo go. And is it URSALUNA time? It is. In comes URSALUNA, farming up the switch into the Excadrill to catch the Side Strike. Very nicely done. And now back in comes the URSALUNA. Mewtwo cannot make another move. What's in the back? Oh boy, Dialga's about to have a bad day. Going for the Shadow High Horsepower. Dialga shields the first, but now they have nothing to stop High Horsepower number 2. Dialga fires off the Iron Head. We see the shield from the Shadow URSALUNA. URSALUNA farming up to the High Horsepower, and it's game over. Hello, Dialga. Goodbye, Dialga. And that's a good game. We see a slightly negative lead in the next match, Excadrill into Dragonite. Exca looking to overfarm, opponent switches out and tries to go for the Rock Slide catch onto their own Excadrill. So the opponent ends up getting a little fancy, and that might cost them here. Opponent is able to win the CMP tie. Drill Run will be shielded. The opponent is just so far behind in terms of energy. Firing off the Drill Run. Drill Run will be shielded, and now in comes URSALUNA. URSALUNA able to tank a Drill Run no problem. Even as the Shadow, URSALUNA does have some pretty solid bulk. URSALUNA farming up and now going for the High Horsepower. High Horsepower will be massive overkill into the Excadrill. In comes the Dragonite. URSALUNA farming up. Opponent tries to go for a switch into the Metagross. They're trying to catch moves, but all they're catching is URSALUNA's hands. Get absolutely one shot. In comes the Mewtwo. Dragonite has so much energy, but one Dragon Claw will not KO here. So this is a very safe no shield from the Mewtwo. Mewtwo can shield Dragon Claw number 2, and Side Strike would take the win here. So instead of going for the double super effective Ice Beam, just gonna go for the Side Strike and secure the victory. Picking up a terrible lead in the next match, Excadrill up against Groudon. Groudon, of course, hits for massive super effective damage in this matchup. Opponent opting to only go for a Fire Punch, but even though it's the bait move, look how much damage that does. And the opponent, to add insult to injury, catches the Drill Run onto Rayquaza. Oh my goodness, things going from bad to worse. Rock Slide into Rayquaza will be shielded. In comes the Shadow URSALUNA. URSALUNA will be able to tank the Breaking Swipe no problem and look to make it to the Ice Punch. URSALUNA farming up here and going for the Ice Punch just before Rayquaza is able to make their next Breaking Swipe. Double super effective damage. Opponent will commit the shield. Opponent looking for the farm down, but Shadow URSALUNA says no, making it to the Ice Punch and getting the KO on the Rayquaza with a fraction of HP remaining. Back in comes the Groudon, but the opponent has given Mewtwo 2 shields, and Shadow Mewtwo up 2 shields is just way too deadly. But first, oh no, he says, anything you can do, I can do better, getting the catch onto the Excadrill. Groudon firing off the charge move. We see the shield from the Mewtwo as Groudon goes for the Fire Punch, continuing to farm up, going for the Ice Beam. Ice Beam will easily one-shot the Groudon here. What is in the back? It's a Dragonite. Oh man, and the opponent top lefts as the Ice Beam is thrown, and that's a good game. We see a familiar lead in the next match, Excadrill into Mewtwo. Exca, of course, is going to farm up and fire off the charge move before the opponent is able to make it to a Shadow Ball. Drill Run will connect, farming up, switching into the URSALUNA, and URSALUNA, this is enough for the Focus Blast, and they have it! Disaster strikes! Oh no! And URSALUNA gets fully one-shot. In comes the Excadrill. This is only going to be a side strike, but losing the entire URSALUNA is absolutely brutal. Exca perfectly overfarming here and firing off the Drill Run before side strike number 2 is reached. The Mewtwo will get KO'd. The question is, what do they have in the back? They have Togekiss, but they try and go for a catch onto Melmetal, and now Melmetal is in basically an unwinnable endgame here, where Melmetal can never Thundershock this down. Melmetal in a really difficult spot. Exca at 2 more Drill Runs here. Going for Drill Run number 1. Melmetal is going to let that go. And back in comes the Togekiss. Togekiss will be hit with the Rock Slide. We see the shield. And now it's time for a Shadow Ice Beam. Farming up to the Ice Beam. Baiting with the Side Strike here. Does the opponent call it? No, they commit the shield. And now, unless there's like an Ancient Power boost or something like that, this game should be over. They go for it. They do not get it. And Mewtwo is able to make the Shadow Ice Beam. And this will easily take care of the Togekiss. Another game, another Mewtwo lead. Oh my goodness, the Mewtwo leads will not quit. Last time, unfortunately, URSALUNA got absolutely one-shot. Here's hoping that this game does end up going a bit better. This time, the opponent throws on 7, so this is only a Shadow Ball. We are going to see the shield from the Exca, though, trying to keep the Exca healthy. Exca continuing to farm. This should only be a Side Strike from the Mewtwo. Mewtwo just looking for whatever damage they can get. Exca is at the back-to-back Drill Runs here. Drill Run into the Mewtwo will be no shielded. Opponent has Kyogre, and this is not good. Exca needing to stay in here and align that Kyogre onto the Mewtwo. In comes the Shadow Mewtwo, but Shadow Mewtwo is not going to appreciate Surf. Mewtwo farming up and firing off the Side Strike. Kyogre has so much energy here, so they will commit the shield. Tough call to make here. Do you try and call a Surf? We see the shield, and that proves to be a very wise decision as the opponent full sent the Origin Pulse, hoping for the KO. Side Strike will get the KO. In the back, it is Togekiss, and we have the battle of Togekiss versus URSALUNA. URSALUNA striking first with the Ice Punch. Ice Punch into the Togekiss will be shielded. URSALUNA continuing to farm. URSALUNA makes it to the Ice Punch, and that looked like the CMP tie. Ice Punch will get the KO and get the win. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Excadrill into Rayquaza. And Rayquaza is staying in this lead, which is quite surprising, as this is a pretty negative matchup for them. Rock Slide number 1 will be shielded. Rayquazas love to shield the first move, as of course after they Breaking Swipe, those future charge moves are going to be doing less. Exca farming up and firing off the Rock Slide here. This is now debuffed. Rayquaza will be able to tank this better, so they are going to let that go. If Exca no shields, they can't make their next move, so Exca is just going to take shield advantage here and get farmed down. Speaking of farm, that's exactly what URSALUNA is hoping to do here. URSALUNA is hoping for the 1 shield farm down and lead with a massive amount of energy. URSALUNA shielding the Breaking Swipe. URSALUNA now debuffed, but leaving up a ton of energy. In the back, there's a Solgaleo. So now we see why the opponent didn't necessarily want to switch, as Drill Run is not a fun thing for Solgaleo to deal with. Able to grab a shield with the high horsepower and a switch into the Shadow Mewtwo. This Mewtwo, of course, does not have Shadow Ball, but the opponent doesn't know that, and they're going to send in Giratina. Giratina will be hit with the Ice Beam, and after they see the Ice Beam, they're going to be very sad that they switched. Back in comes the Shadow URSALUNA. URSALUNA, of course, is going to be double resisting the charge moves here, but Giratina should make 2, so will need to shield 1. URSALUNA will be able to tank this move. It is going to be the Shadow Ball. URSALUNA looking for the farm down and gets it, leaving with the high horsepower. Back in comes the Solgaleo. Solgaleo is extremely bulky, but the high horsepower and the tackles are enough to get the win. Same leads in the next match, Exca into Rayquaza. But this opponent does have better checks, so they are going to safe switch into Mewtwo. Mewtwo will be met with a Drill Run, farming up with the Exca. The opponent has built up to at least a Focus Blast here. Exca calls it, and it's the Side Strike. That is a massive bait call there. And now going to fire off the Drill Run. Going for a slight undercharge, but we do see a shield from the opponent and a switch into Shadow Ursaluna. Ursaluna going to be able to tank the Side Strike. Ursaluna is going to look for the one shield farm down play to leave with energy to threaten Rayquaza with double super effective Ice Punch. Opponent aggressively switches into Rayquaza. Rayquaza cannot get the farm down before the Ice Punch is reached. Ice Punch will be shielded. So Rayquaza does leave with energy, which is a bit uncomfortable here, as of course it can spam out those Breaking Swipe debuffs. In comes the Shadow Mewtwo. Mewtwo committing an early shield here as Rayquaza fires off the Breaking Swipe. Mewtwo continuing to farm, but Rayquaza with that energy lead able to make a second Breaking Swipe. Mewtwo now 2 stages debuffed. We see a pivot into the Excadrill, saving all the energy on the Mewtwo for later and making it to the Rock Slide. Going for an undercharge on the Rock Slide. What a perfect undercharge, as this will set up farm for the Mewtwo. Mewtwo gets the farm down. We still haven't seen that final Pokemon in the back, and it's an Excadrill firing off the Ice Beam. That does massive damage. Mewtwo farming up. Opponent sends in their own Mewtwo, but unfortunately, I think it's not going to quite be enough. Going for the Psycho Cut down, and it's a simultaneous KO. We see a great lead in the next match, Excadrill into Melmetal. Exca is going to strike first with the Drill Run. Drill Run, of course, does not one-shot, so the opponent is able to no-shield if they want to. Melmetal, of course, does have access to Superpower, but that will not one-shot either. Opponent now going to save switch into Dragonite, and Dragonite will be met with a Rock Slide. Rock Slide into the Dragonite does get shielded. Exca cannot make another move, and now it is Shadow Ursaluna time. Ursaluna farming up. We see a switch into the Mewtwo. Is it the Superpower? It is not. Opponent baited with the Dragon Claw. That is a bit unfortunate. The good news is Ursa does have some energy though. They fire off another Dragon Claw. Mewtwo able to make it to the Side Strike, and Shadow Side Strike is no joke. Side Strike will get the KO. Opponent is going to send in the Melmetal. Melmetal throws energy, and that's a misplay by the opponent. They could have farmed down. They go for the Superpower in the back. It's a Mewtwo going straight for the high horsepower here into the Mewtwo. This will be big damage if it lands, which it does, and that should just be game over, as we're going to see the Side Strike used by the Mewtwo. Ursaluna will get the farm down. In comes the Melmetal, and Melmetal can hit for damage with the Superpower, but Ursaluna is just too tanky. Ursaluna goes for the Ice Punch, gets the shield, and Ursaluna is going to be shielding up as the opponent goes for the Superpower, and they're unable to make Superpower number 2. We see a bit of a tricky lead in the next match, Excadrill into Mamoswine. Opponent save switches into Rayquaza, and we see a misplay from the opponent. They could have stayed in what was a pretty good matchup for them, but by sending in Rayquaza, Rayquaza is now in a decidedly negative matchup. Rayquaza will fire off the Breaking Swipe, but Exca can very comfortably no-shield that and apply pressure with the Rock Slide. Going for an undercharge on the Rock Slide and a switch into the Ursaluna. Ursaluna can tank this. Just look for the full farm down and look to leave with some energy to threaten the Mamoswine. Leaving with a bunch of energy here. This is debuffed energy, but Shadow High Horsepower is going to do so much damage to the Mamoswine. Ursaluna farming up a shield, so no point in baiting. High Horsepower does get shielded. Mamoswine gets the farm down. Mamoswine down 2 shields, but has a massive amount of energy that it can use to get those shields back. In comes the Shadow Mewtwo. We see the immediate shield from the Mewtwo as Mamoswine fires off the Avalanche. Farming up, we see a switch into Excadrill, and in the back, it is Xerneas. And Xerneas will be met with a Drill Run. Drill Run will hit for some solid damage into the Xerneas, and Xerneas farming up another Geomancy, allowing Exca to make another Drill Run. At this point, I mean, you just let this go. They are very, very low on energy here. They go for the close combat. This is just going to be a close combat into the Mewtwo, as you cannot hold a close combat in a Moonblast. Back in comes the Mamo. Mamo firing off energy, but Mewtwo still has the shield remaining. Not shielding the close combat is going to prove to be the win con here. A Side Strike from the Shadow Mewtwo will get the win. Picking up a tough lead in the final match, Excadrill into Dragonite. Exca, of course, Rock Slide is not going to one-shot the Dragonite, whereas Dragonite's Superpower will one-shot, but the opponent makes a pretty serious mistake. They don't build up to the Superpower. If you're baiting, you absolutely have to build up to the big move, because if your opponent's counting like Wind Regalia is here, you can very comfortably no-shield the bait, and now, what should be a good matchup for the opponent is in a terrible situation here. Exca just gonna let this go. They go for another Dragon Claw. That's not gonna KO, and the opponent now has to give up both shields or be down a shield and lose switch advantage. So the opponent is in a terrible situation here, and Exca will be answered with URSALUNA. URSALUNA able to tank a drill run, no problem here, so we will see a no shield. Exca going for the rock slide. The opponent unfortunately making all the wrong reads in this matchup here. URSALUNA is going to commit the shield. Exca still going for rock slides into the ground type, clearly unfamiliar with URSALUNA's typing. URSALUNA going for the high horsepower. High horsepower will get the KO in the back. It's a Metagross farming up with the URSALUNA. URSALUNA baiting with the Ice Punch here. The opponent's already seen the high horsepower and they shield, and that's going to be game over here. As you know what? You do need to throw the right charge moves here. Had they gone for a drill run into the Ursa couldn't make this move. But since they rock slided, they get 2v3'd by Excadrill and URSALUNA. All in all, URSALUNA is a Pokemon with amazing charge moves and amazing stats, and I really hope that it gets a better fast move in the future. This thing hits like an absolute truck, and I would love to see what it could do with a better fast move, because Tackle, unfortunately, while it can do some okay fast move pressure, really is not great in terms of energy generation. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.